He is the god of electricity, the inventor of the alternating current, the Tesla coil, the transformer and countless other things, and not least, his name and free energy have almost become synonymous. Nikola Tesla, the man who invented everything. Since the super-rich Elon Musk named his electric car after Tesla, Nikola Tesla has become an integral part of today's pop culture. He, the genius who single-handedly changed the world, and whose inventions were so important that the American Secret Service keeps his documents under lock and key. For security reasons, of course. What more do you need to create a legend? There are dozens of books about Tesla, and not all of them deal with his inventions. Today, his name can be found in the esoteric as well as in science fiction books or books about free energy. Tesla was, it seems, a universal genius. His name is the anthem of the electrified age. Tesla is climate-friendly. There is the Tesla electricity tariff, the Tesla app for energy products, the fetishized Tesla electric car, and also the Tesla share. Many companies use Tesla's name, many glorifying documentaries, and yes, there is even Tesla's 3 to 6 9 rule for changing your own lifestyle habits. Tesla is a buzzword, a brand, a worldview. Tesla inspires with his zero-point energy, the ultimate life energy. Free energy for all, electricity for all, one way or another. And this technology, it is rumored, is being withheld from us. The bad guys and the good guys, the technocrats and the esotericists, the left and right hemispheres of the brain, everyone agrees Tesla is the genius of the 20th century, the master of lightning, the magician of numbers, who knew how to harness the life energy present in the ether and who, like no other, embodies the hope for wireless energy supply. But let's take a look. So, where do we start? What could be more obvious than to start with his name? Let's try an experiment with Gematria. In this process, letters are converted into their corresponding numerical values according to different keys in order to derive meanings from these and establish relationships. There are 2 spellings for Nikola Tesla. His first name comes from the Greek Nikolaos. In the South Slavonic area, Nikola is spelled with a K, and in the Italian Latin area with a C. In the English language, Nikola would also be spelled with a C. That is why Tesla is also spelled with both versions on the internet. Tesla spent most of his life in America, and there his name is understood as Nikola with C. Any American would write the name that way if they didn't know any better. The name sounds the same in all cases. Is that so important? Maybe. Nada Brahma. The world is sound. Nikola Tesla with K yields the number 714. Interesting. There is a lot to be found about this number. Now let's see what number we get in the English Gematria when we enter the name Nikola Tesla with C. 666. Oh, who would have thought that? What is the probability that exactly this number would come up by chance? And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. All just a coincidence? In the official history, lightning as an electrical natural phenomenon has been known to man for a long time, as a tool of Zeus or Jupiter, or in Christianity as a punishment of God. Since amber is easily electrically charged when rubbed, electrostatics was known for just as long and was considered a mystery. Lightning is the epitome of electricity, and Tesla was the master of lightning. The lightning used in Satanism symbolizes Satan as the true creator God. Lightning is the life force, bioelectricity. All the downward-pointing symbols in Satanism represent energy from above, descending and giving life and empowerment to the human soul. It is no coincidence that Frankenstein used lightning to create his monsters. a propaganda film that anticipated the future. Tesla was part of the New York high society of the time. J.P. Morgan, Westinghouse, and many other important exponents of power were personally known to him. He gave parties himself and was in contact with those who had the opportunity to change the world. J.P. Morgan proved this impressively when he and others like him created a private central bank for America and thus for the world in 1913. In many books, Tesla is stylized into a shining light with special abilities, and it is not uncommon for the authors to be his biggest fans. However, it is only recently that critical contemporaries have taken a closer look at his life story and inventions, and on closer inspection, much of what Tesla is credited with dissolves into a cloud of doubt or is simply not true. Tesla was undoubtedly a highly intelligent, imaginative inventor and a good speaker and showman who could captivate his audience with electrical demonstrations. In Tesla's time, there were many physicists and scientists in America and Europe who were studying the phenomenon of electricity and, as happens again and again today, many were working on the same problems at the same time. Things were in the air. Just as many companies are working on perfecting virtual reality today, solutions were being worked on to generate and transport large amounts of electricity and to make it usable with motors. Most technology historians consider the induction electric motor and the system of polyphase electricity to be Tesla's most important contributions. Tesla's work, especially in collaboration with Westinghouse, led not only to the widespread adoption of the induction motor in the late 19th century, a breakthrough in quality, but also to the widespread use of three-phase current, which remains the predominant standard for industrial power transmission to this day. It brought a new level of efficiency to AC power technology. Tesla's ideas for both the motor and three-phase in the last 2 decades of the 19th century had been in the air long before he was a boy. In fact, the first example was developed by Hippolyte Pixii in 1832. He invented a simple AC generator with a hand crank that would literally ignite a new industry. In the 1870s, crude two-phase alternators were used in Germany, and Galileo Ferraris, an Italian scientist, was openly talking about polyphase AC in 1885. Others were also working on this challenge around the same time as Tesla. In 1887, August Hasselwander and C.S. Bradley created the first three-phase generator. But this is not to minimize Tesla's significant role in the development and adoption of AC in the United States thereafter. He just didn't invent it, as some would have you believe. Tesla's priority of invention of both the motor and its distribution system was challenged in the American courts, with the support of his backers and patent holders, where he eventually prevailed. But it seems that an Italian named Galileo Ferraris has a pretty good claim on both inventions. Tesla's association with Westinghouse led to the introduction of large-scale electrical power and motor systems, and it is generally commercial success such as this that brings an inventor fame. Tesla did not really invent the induction coil either. Although Tesla did develop his own device based in part on the principles of induction, it is called the Tesla coil and the induction motor, but it was not originally his idea. In fact, the introduction was the work of none other than the great and prolific Michael Faraday. The induction coil itself was the work of the very talented Mr. Nicholas Callan in 1836. Both Faraday's and Callan's work predates Tesla's birth by several decades. Early induction coils were the first types of transformers, and were used in X-ray machines, spark gap transmitters, and other devices between the 1880s and the 1920s. He did not invent the first transformer either. This was actually developed by the Ganz company in Budapest in the late 1870s. Tesla was still at school at the time and had not even started his first job at a telephony company. The first modern transformer as we know it was invented by William Stanley in 1885, and his idea was based on the ideas of Gaillard and Gibbs. Gaillard had used his transformer in the Lanzo to Turin demonstration of alternating current in 1884. In 1885, Tesla was officially among those working on alternating current at the time. Tesla often mentioned that he had his own design for a complete alternating current system in mind in 1882. However, there is little, if any, documentary evidence to support this. Tesla did not invent the fluorescent lamp either. Alexandre E. Becquerel first studied the phenomena of fluorescence in 1857. Some say Edison invented the lamps. Others say George Inman developed the modern fluorescent lamp in 1934. It's hard to say who was first because once again there was a lawsuit. There is a possibility that a German, Edmund Germer, preceded them both. Many people worked on the concept, but Inman is credited with coming up with the first successful and practical design. Daniel McFarlane Moore developed the Moore tube, which was the first commercial forerunner of the fluorescent lamp. Even if Tesla did play with the theories, he was never alone, and did not contribute much compared to others who actually worked out the difficulties into a functioning product. The same story can be found in the claim that he invented radar, and so Tesla's power plant at Niagara Falls was not the first in the world. Another common myth is that Tesla invented the radio. In fact, Tesla also developed a device that enabled wireless communication independently of Guglielmo Marconi in 1896, which he patented in 1897. The discovery eventually earned Marconi the Nobel Prize. Tesla's own patents were later revoked by the U.S. Patent Office, sparking a legal battle between the two that lasted well into the 1940s. And that's what the development of electrical applications was all about. Patents. It was about business. Tesla is said to have been responsible for over 700 patents. Patents that were used to monopolize the energy industry of the time and to prevent competitors from entering the market. A race against time, but no intention of supplying people with free energy can be deduced from this. The dispute over patents continues unabated to this day, but it has shifted to other areas, and the pharmaceutical industry cannot be accused of working for the benefit of people by accumulating as many patents as possible. Then, as now, it was about profit and market share. Nikola Tesla and Thomas Edison were both imaginative marketing and business people who were able to present and sell their inventions or what they spent on them well, and both were concerned with optimizing electricity as an energy source. Their wealthy clients were solely concerned with tapping into the emerging energy market. From the very beginning, electricity as an energy source, along with the emerging use of oil, was in the hands of the super-rich, and they still control the development and use of these forms of energy today. And so does public opinion about them. The legend surrounding Tesla went so far that he, the egocentric with a fixation on numbers, was said to have supernatural abilities. He could conduct vast amounts of electricity through his body, had a photographic memory, and could devise complicated machines in his head alone, and he could predict the future. He is said to have invented the universal world destruction machine, and the explosion in Tunguska in 1908 is said to be a result of his work. It is said that he could make things invisible. He himself claimed in interviews that he had had contact with extraterrestrial life on Mars, and yet he died under mysterious circumstances as an impoverished, unmarried, lonely old man in the New York hotel where he had lived for years. Tesla was already stylized into a legend during his lifetime, and after his death his name quickly became a synonym for genius and free energy. Lots of myths and esoteric secret knowledge are associated with his name, and if he were so dangerous to the system, how easy it would have been for the controllers to make him and his name forgotten. But they had other plans for him. He and his name were made into a myth. He was set up as a figurehead of the electrical age and misused for the electrical agenda. We see this kind of thing happen again and again. Heroes are artificially constructed solely to serve an agenda, as an artificial point of reference within a predetermined framework. It could well be that the great catastrophe of over 200 years ago, which caused a worldwide mud flood, was the effect of electric magnetic fields. Otherwise, the simultaneous occurrence of this flood can hardly be explained, and it can be further assumed that the survivors, above all the robber barons, had a strong interest in understanding and controlling these phenomena themselves. Thus, intensive research into electricity only began after the mud flood, although the phenomenon had been known for a very long time. Just like many other scientific fields, it was only established 200 years ago. As usual, historiography before 1800 is blurred. But there are indications that before 1800 the electrical tension in the atmosphere was too high and became a problem for people. So there was a lightning rod fashion before the turn of the century. Clothes, hats, and umbrellas were provided with a lightning rod at that time. What were these people afraid of? It seems that before the catastrophe and the mudslide around 1800, the Earth's magnetic fields went crazy and charged the atmosphere. Benjamin Franklin's lightning rod for buildings also seems to have arisen from this need, as lightning strikes were said to have caused many fires. But equally, lightning rods could be used to bypass the technology of the old world, built into the old buildings, thus shutting them down. The story that Franklin was struck by lightning while flying a kite, and that he invented the lightning rod because of the electrical discharges on the kite line, is probably one of those twisted Freemason stories. He could also just have seen the discharges in the overcharged atmosphere of the time. What is energy? The word energy goes back to the ancient Greek word energia, which in Greek antiquity had a purely philosophical meaning in the sense of living reality and effectiveness. As a scientific term, the word itself was only introduced into mechanics in 1807, also around the time of the Great Cataclysm, by the physicist Thomas Young. We humans perceive energy in different ways, as light, as warmth, or as power. We live in a universe of potentials and potential differences. Today, potential is an ambiguous word that is used in an inflationary manner in academic and scientific fields to describe only one thing, the possibility that something could happen. If you look closely at all these potentials in terms of energy and reduce them to a common denominator, you come to the conclusion that there is only one form of energy: movement. Movement is energy. Energy is movement. Something is moving. Whether it is a particle, an electron, an atom, a molecule, the wind or the sun. Even the atoms of a stone are in motion. movement in all directions, in all forms. The popular explanation of the functioning of the universe with vibrations and frequencies is a veiled, extremely incomplete description of this movement. Not everything vibrates, and not everything has a frequency. Some things happen once, some several times periodically or irregularly, and some not at all, or not as you would expect. The terms rhythm and sound, vibration and resonance describe these movements much more accurately than frequency and vibration. The entire natural energy cycle on Earth is based on the storage and conversion, and thus the release of energy. And electricity is always involved. It is the eternal dance of attraction and repulsion, of charge and discharge, the spark of life. As a human being, you are directly involved in this cycle through your body. Since Isaac Newton, we know that this energy can only be converted and is always preserved in one form or another. It is never lost. Everything physical, everything material on our earth is subject to this conversion process. However, a person's consciousness, self and soul, are not subject to this. They are the only static, the only unchanging elements in our world. All matter can store energy, but some materials are better at it than others. This is referred to as energy density, calorific value or heating value. If you delve into the world of physics, you will find countless formulas and equations. Nature stores energy in a variety of ways. Today, we use a variety of materials with different energy densities to meet our daily energy needs, whether it's food, wood, coal, alcohol, gas, various oils, uranium, wind power, sunlight, water currents, chemical reactions, and so on. We convert them all into light, heat, or motion. However, we humans find it difficult to generate and store energy ourselves. Although we can convert wood into almost pure carbon by charring it, thus increasing the energy density, the only types of not necessarily stable storage available to us are batteries or accumulators, dams, pressure vessels, and heat stores. The energy that we can generate using nuclear power plants, windmills, and solar energy requires an enormous technical effort. Cheaper alternatives are suppressed. All other natural forms of energy come from nature in stored form and must be mined by cutting down forests for wood, mining coal, pumping oil out of the ground, or extracting oils from plant raw materials. Work is always required for the extraction, and simple devices are usually sufficient for the end user to use this energy. Even a car does not have to be complicated to function. A reservoir can be built and then used for decades. The same applies to a power grid with thousands and thousands of kilometers of cables. Batteries and accumulators are produced and used for years before they become unusable. Likewise, the few pressure vessels or heat stores have a limited lifespan. The production and supply of electricity is ubiquitous. Nuclear power plants, dams, wind generators, river hydroelectric power plants, networks, transformer stations, high-voltage lines, house connections, and trillions of end devices. And when this period of operation is over, energy would actually have to be expended again for disposal. But that is not done. When in operation, the energy storage devices require considerably less effort than the energy from nature, and once converted into electricity, this energy can be transported almost without human intervention via lines at seemingly low cost. And this can be used to create an illusion. And we have all fallen for it. We are so utterly dependent on electricity that hardly anyone can manage without it anymore. We live in cities, villages and homes that are completely dependent on electricity, and a single off switch could trigger chaos. Yet the energy and ecological balance for electricity is extremely poor. But the possibility of longer use of systems and devices without great expense has blinded us to this fact. Before electricity was used, there was little need to pay attention to the dismantling of energy generation plants. Iron structures rusted, water wheels rotted, and windmills simply fell apart when they were no longer used. The same applied to the end devices. Today's archaeologists would be happy to find a little more of our ancestors' waste in order to be able to draw conclusions about their lives. We have not yet seen our dams collapse due to old age, causing immense costs. But we see environmental pollution from discarded electrical devices, worn wind turbines, and the health effects of electricity use everywhere. In contrast to natural energy sources, the use of electricity results in immense mining and disposal costs, which are not included in the calculation and the costs for the user, and these hidden costs are reflected in the massive environmental pollution caused by electrical devices and the things that are produced with the help of cheap electricity. If the price of electricity reflected the real costs, many cheap products such as plastic from petrochemicals would be far too expensive, and no one would even think of producing them. The same thing happens here. The costs for mining are not included, and so plastic waste ends up everywhere in nature. No one talks about the incredibly high costs of disposing of wind turbines, batteries, accumulators, and all the end devices for using electricity. No one talks about the costs of disposing of the products that were produced with the help of artificially cheap electricity. But that is intentional and wanted. There is no free market. There never has been. All prices are controlled, manipulated, and completely distorted. If the users of electricity had to pay the costs of dismantling and disposal, electricity would be almost unaffordable and would not prevail as an energy source in a free market. The extraction costs for energy therefore also include the sustainable disposal of the equipment needed for extraction and use. Sustainable free energy would therefore be the energy yield minus extraction costs and disposal. Electricity would be used to control mechanical systems and electrochemical reactions. But instead of electric motors, combustion engines would be used because they are more economical and better for health. Cheaper energy sources such as gas, oil, or other chemical substances would be used as strong light sources. Wood, coal, or other combustible materials or chemical reactions would be used as heat sources. The possible applications are as diverse as the human imagination. The artificially cheapened energy source electricity was and is the mother of environmental pollution. what is free energy? Today, there is talk of ether energy, and yet nobody knows exactly what is meant by it. Energy that is available in inexhaustible quantities and should be available to everyone. In the field of esotericism, ether energy or zero-point energy is equated with life energy. Since Albert Einstein, however, the ether no longer officially exists, and yet it keeps cropping up under a different name. Physics cannot do without the ether and calls it a Hertz field, a quantum field, or, in esotericism, a zero point as needed. However, the ether appears to be an information system that ensures the cohesion of matter and biology, similar to a multidimensional signpost, a multidimensional riverbed, which energy and accordingly also matter and biology must follow. The ether is what makes the existence of matter and energy possible in the first place, the movement at the micro and macro level of reality, and everything is interwoven by the ether, but the ether is not the energy itself. In general, the ether is seen as the carrier of all physical processes, that is, what they say. Free electricity is what many people mean when they talk about free energy. And the connection with the master of lightning, Nikola Tesla, is probably the most convincing argument. However, research in this field encounters more dead ends than it can overcome, and the results so far are sobering. It seems impossible to extract energy from nothing, and so in many experiments some kind of natural energy form is found that is tapped. Electromagnetic fields, electrostatic phenomena or electrochemical processes. No energy can be extracted from motion and from nothing. There are machines that use such phenomena and that can also be used to generate electricity. But these are always small amounts which are not nearly sufficient to serve as energy sources, but which could well be used as control currents or for devices with little power.
The two disks rotating in opposite directions generate an electrostatic charge. One disk represents the Earth, while the other represents the cloud. The charge is held using grid electrodes. Then it is picked up and organized contactlessly by so-called sensors. The disks start running on their own after being initially spun by hand, following the electrostatic laws of repulsion and attraction. A rectifier diode keeps it intact, because otherwise the impulses of the attraction and repulsion forces would change, causing the disks to run faster and faster. The correct rotational speed is very important, and for optimal power generation, the disks need to run very smoothly and slowly. The energy is stored in the grid capacitors and then released evenly, after which the high voltage is reduced by additional devices while simultaneously building up the power. The machine produces a continuous direct current, which depends on the size of the model. This machine provides a continuous output of 3 to 4 kilowatts depending on humidity, with the voltage fluctuating between 270 and 320 volts. High humidity prevents the buildup of voltage. Dry air is the best. The results achieved so far have certainly achieved a main objective. Free energy can be harnessed. However, the research continues.
Natural electrostatics. Even these inventions are suppressed, and research on them usually fails for financial reasons. No financier and no bank is willing to spoil it with the big players in the industry. The electricity obtained in this way can be used in many ways, for example to produce oxyhydrogen or hydrogen gas from water, which only produces water vapor when burned. Chemical reaction energy can be obtained everywhere. The technical problems are all solved, self-sufficient energy supply would be possible, but the controllers have no interest in decentralizing energy production. Free energy directly from the ether, like Tesla's zero-point energy, does not exist. That is an illusion. Electricity is the control system used by the ether, which holds the universe and thus reality together. We can only ever latch onto existing natural energetic processes. Wireless energy transmission does not exist either, unless one can control strong electrical discharges, i.e. lightning, so precisely that they actually reach the receiver. With all the health effects that the strong electrical fields would produce, a lightning bolt would destroy everything in its path on its way to the consumer. It is also not enough to enrich the atmosphere with strong electromagnetic fields, as Tesla did in one of his experiments.
It's moving. It's alive. It's alive. It's moving. It's alive. Oh, it's alive. It's alive. It's alive. It's alive. Oh, in the name of God. Now I know what it feels like to be God. Oh.
So, what is free energy really? Free energy without effort is an illusion. Every energy generation is associated with a certain effort. If you want to make a fire or light, you have to collect wood or first extract oil from biological raw materials or drill holes in the ground. If you want to use the power of a stream, you first have to build a water wheel. If you want to harvest the wind, you first have to build a windmill. Even the construction of free energy generators requires an effort, but there is still free energy, namely when the harvest of energy is greater than the effort to obtain it. Free energy has little to do with Nikola Tesla and even less to do with electricity, and that's why you don't hear much about people like Victor Schauberger or Wilhelm Reich who take a completely different approach to free energy. It is the wonders of creation, the processes of nature that enable us to meet our energy needs from their eternal cycle. An infinite amount of energy is available to us with more or less effort. Nature itself offers energy in abundance. Energy that never runs out, and yet we act as if energy is in short supply. That is why the controllers have put price tags on everything, distorting and obscuring the true costs. The earth itself renews this energy again and again, and a shortage exists only in the minds of men. So why do we use electricity? All matter, whether gaseous or solid, whether plant, animal or human, has a common denominator. Everything is electrically charged in one way or another. All matter has an electrical potential. Every biological organism uses electricity in some form. Nervous systems are the electrical conductors of nature, and signals are sent through them to keep organisms alive. Electrical signals are the control system of all matter. Organic and inorganic, nothing exists without electricity. Electricity has a brother called magnetism. Wherever electricity is, magnetism is never far away. Magnetism generates electrical voltage in matter, and electrical voltage in matter generates magnetic fields. Everything that is based on electricity also has corresponding magnetic fields. Electricity is the control system by which the matter and biology of our universe is directed, and it is precisely this system that they want to control. They want to play God. Electrical signals control our thoughts, our well-being and our bodies. Electric magnetic fields affect the nervous systems of biological organisms and can influence, modify or overwrite their electrical signals. Therefore, unnatural electric magnetic fields are dangerous for all living things, the stronger they are. Magnetic fields can influence all electrical activities in a biological organism, and organisms exposed to such fields are almost defenseless against them. There are almost no places on Earth today where humans are not exposed to some kind of artificial magnetic field. Radio, television, and telephone can be received almost everywhere. Even the 1.4 billion people who have no direct access to electrical energy are exposed to these artificial magnetic fields. They are everywhere where people live, and many suffer health damage from them. The correlation between the introduction of new technology and health damage is unmistakable and has been proven and documented for decades. With the introduction of radio, radar, television technology, mobile technology, Wi-Fi, high-voltage lines and transformer stations, many new diseases emerged. The currently constructed 5th and 6th generation networks are no different. The high frequencies used are suitable for warfare. Of course, this is a goldmine for the pharmaceutical industry, another multi-billion-dollar industry owned by the same super-rich people who control the energy industry. Electricity, industrialization, pollution, and disease go hand in hand. Free energy also means self-sufficiency and independence. And the controllers of this world do not want independence. They do not want everyone to harvest energy themselves and use it as they wish. So they make people dependent on electricity and its end users through dumping prices and fraudulent cost calculations, destroy conventional ways of generating and using energy, and launch defamatory media campaigns against certain raw materials such as coal, hemp, and petroleum. We live in a closed system, talk of the harmfulness of individual natural processes such as the production of CO2, the exhaust gases of a wood fire, the combustion of oils is pure propaganda. These are natural processes of the earth. All these processes take place in a natural cycle, and these processes are only harmful to us locally in excessive quantities, and even that is natural. The production of particulate matter, for example, is a natural process, but when it is locally excessive, as in a volcanic eruption, a forest fire, or the burning of oil in a large city, it is harmful to organisms. But this is used to suggest that humans could influence the climate, and so the natural changes in the climate are also exploited for the electric agenda. With today's knowledge, we can build engines that last for decades or even centuries. Environmentally friendly engines that can filter the substances produced in increased concentrations. Engines that can use any form of gas, oil, alcohol, diesel, and other substances. Engines that cost far less to produce and dispose of than what can be gained from them. The inspectors are also aware of this, which is why engines today are optimized to the point of failure by regulations and no longer deliver the longevity and robustness that was possible in the 1960s. Hemp, for example, serves as a raw material for countless products, and hemp oil, which is produced as waste in the production of these products, makes it possible to power a diesel or gasoline engine at a low cost. Hemp plastic can be used to create environmentally friendly building materials that cost almost nothing to dispose of. That is why hemp is banned. Modern and beautifully designed cars would also be possible with this sustainable raw material. Just like our food, our energy could be produced locally and in our own gardens. The controllers want free and self-sufficient energy just as much as they want free and self-sufficient people. That is why the idea is being put across everywhere that without electricity from the socket we would fall back into primitiveness. But that is not true. With the raw materials mentioned above, with today's technology and knowledge of physics, biology and chemistry, we could lead an equally comfortable life and even achieve a much higher standard of living and better health. The magnetic fields caused by modern electric cars and the risk of burning batteries that are difficult to extinguish are far more dangerous and harmful to passengers than the exhaust fumes from a combustion engine. The electric light of modern light bulbs in our homes is far more harmful than natural light from fire and other chemical reactions. These supposedly modern light bulbs must now be disposed of as hazardous waste. What progress! Likewise, high-voltage power lines and the strong signals from radio masts and mobile devices are extremely harmful to all organisms. Electricity and the electromagnetic fields it generates are uneconomical and harmful to the environment. And everything is being done to conceal this. The damage to health and the costs due to the electric fields generated by lines, devices and networks cannot even be estimated, and the short-term advantages do not justify the massive use of electricity in any way, unless you have something bad in mind, a perfidious plan, and it's not just economic dependence. That is visible to everyone, and this goal has long been achieved. But that's not enough. Nature's own control system is now being turned against life itself. With the Internet, a network has been created, a new nervous system built, in which the individual human being has become trapped, dependent, controllable, monitorable, and manipulable. Always online, connected to the network. Many people today already live in a virtual reality, spending most of their lives in virtual worlds. Electronic department stores, electronic services and libraries, an electronic entertainment industry, electronic currencies and electronic friendships, alienated from reality and their own environment. We are closely connected to a world with our smartphones and computers that we can neither control nor influence. It is the web in which the spider catches its prey. And it is influences on the brain, like a cocaine addict, that form the glue on the web. The magnetic fields of smartphones and computers, of television and radio, of Wi-Fi and mobile networks influence the natural electrical signals in the conductors of our brains and bodies. We are made ill by the media created only by electricity, and combined with psychological tricks and hypnosis, we are kept in a fantasy reality. The introduction of virtual reality for everyone is already being considered by means of the Facebook successor Metaverse. It won't be long before humans spend their entire lives in an artificially created electric virtual world. And that means total control over our bodies, our feelings and thoughts. They want to go straight into people's brains. Implant technology is already very advanced, and in the not-too-distant future it will be possible to use such implants to dive into virtual worlds that are as real as reality. The brains will be directly controlled and stimulated with electrical impulses. With the help of electricity, we are on the way to transhumanism, and transhumanism is only possible with electricity. The well-known movie Matrix is not a science fiction story. It is a documentation.
Have you ever had a dream, Neo, that you were so sure was real? What if you were unable to wake from that dream? How would you know the difference between the dream world and the real world?
What is happening to me?
The answer is out there, Neo. It's the question that drives us.
What is the Matrix?
The Matrix is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth.
What truth?
They're watching you, Neo.
Human beings are a disease. You are a cancer of this planet. And we are the cure.
Get me the hell out of here!
Welcome to the real world.
We are already in prison, but the door is not yet locked. We still have the opportunity to escape. If we speculate about the energy of the ancient world, then we should not measure it by today's standards, but assume that electricity was used differently. As a control system, with weak electrical signals, with weak electrical charges of selected materials and combinations thereof, control signals that could even influence nature and make nature work for the benefit of humans. Energy and movement are all around us, and it is weak electrical impulses at the smallest level that control this marvel of creation. Being able to control this natural energy was probably the secret of our ancestors, and it also enabled them to achieve a high standard of living and to construct fantastic buildings and facilities. What knowledge that must have been! There are many areas in electrical engineering and magnetism that have apparently not been researched, and little is known about the interactions between man-made magnetic fields and nature, or this knowledge is kept secret. There are good reasons to assume that there is a wealth of prior knowledge from the old world that the controllers do not want people to know about. Every organ in the human body has its own electrical charge and generates its own magnetic field. A human being is a conglomeration of different magnetic fields that overlap and influence each other. The connection with the chakras or meridians is obvious. It is quite possible that we can do more with our own magnetic field in nature than we could ever imagine. We just no longer know how we can do this in a world that has become an electromagnetic prison, a world in which every organ and thus every body is influenced by artificial magnetic fields. Today we live in an ever-present electromagnetic soup. Everything has its own electrical charge and its own magnetic field. We know that magnetic fields can be influenced by others. Just as humans can be influenced by magnetic fields, humans influence their environment with their own magnetic field. The human magnetic field changes measurably. Activity, feelings, state of health, and even thoughts change a person's field. The EEG, the electroencephalogram, or lie detectors show this only too clearly. A person's field can even be measured over a distance of several meters. This human magnetic field has an influence on the things and living beings within it. Are we given the opportunity here to influence the magnetic fields of things, and thus their properties around us through our activity, feelings and thoughts? We notice when we are being looked at, plants grow better when you are good to them, and even better when you love them. Rice spoils when you swear at it, and water tastes better when you bless it. There is a lot of evidence, but we are not supposed to focus on it. There is little research in this area, and research with electrostatic fields and plant seeds or farm animals is not funded and suppressed as far as possible. Nikola Tesla is the figurehead of a monstrously electrified world. He was knowingly or unknowingly, intentionally or unintentionally, a servant of a diabolical system that sought and found an urgent way to abuse and to some extent control the control mechanisms of nature. Perhaps it was the abuse of the same control mechanisms of nature that triggered the great catastrophe over 200 years ago. Nikola Tesla is part of the electrical agenda and his misused name a ticket to fascism. After the complete electrification and control of the world, the electrification and electrical control of humans through electronics comes next, and finally, direct intervention in the brain waves of each individual follows. All of this is being considered and is already in development. Billions are being invested in these areas, a complete electrification of human existence. But a great deal of electrical energy is needed for this, more than could ever be produced, unless there were far fewer people on Earth. Is that the reason for the current efforts to reduce the population through a pandemic that has been talked into existence, and the forced administration of highly toxic substances that react to magnetic fields? The New World Order is being established by means of electricity and magnetic fields. Electricity and electronics have become part of a crazy cult that threatens to completely alienate people from nature and to control them. A complex control and monitoring system from which there is no escape. Smartphones and networks are the means to do this, and many no longer even realize how they are steering towards the abyss, addicted and dependent. No one has to be constantly online and available, and no one needs a smartphone that monitors you 24 hours a day and records everything you do. If you don't want this new world order, you have to find ways to get along without these electronic devices, or at least limit their use. There is no reason to constantly walk around with a smartphone that is harmful to your health. Similarly, using online chats is a very inferior substitute for direct human interaction. The hypnosis box in the living room, the TV is just as much a part of this plan. It is up to us to stop the agenda of these technocrats. They are insane control freaks who have bought up the weakest among us with money and are now turning them into killers. It is high time for resistance and for civil disobedience. We don't need this electronic madness, and we don't need full-time electronic surveillance, QR codes, or artificial high-performance networks that span the entire Earth and obstruct life. In order to fulfill their sick fantasies of omnipotence, the controllers abuse the life energy of creation and turn it against the people themselves. Free energy for all is growing on every doorstep, and only natural harmony with the electromagnetic fields of nature and other living beings is appropriate for us. The knowledge to do so is there. The time has come. The earth belongs to all of us. Who knows? The largest electromagnetic field produced by man himself is that of his heart, and not, as many believe, that of his brain. It may well be that the solution to this madness lies precisely therein.